Russia is the discussion of the day, always when it comes to the media. And right now, it's hard to sift through truth versus fiction. So here at the show, we've tried to be fair. We're not Trump cheerleaders, but I think we need to recognize the legitimate pros and cons of Donald Trump's presidency. So I think actually looking at the legislative accomplishments, because there actually are a few, if you wade through what the media wants to cover. So once you get through all of the conspiracy theories and the scandals from unnamed sources and completely unsubstantiated claims, or the where we can't take enough winning, right? Alt-right, get away from the cheerleading and get away from the nothing but covering Russia. So let's go through an official list, I think is fair and I want you to send in what you think are the biggest pros and cons of President Trump, what his presidency has been like. So now, some of these cons that we're going to list, you might think are actually pros and vice versa, but these are things that I will list under cons, would generally be seen by conservatives as some shortcomings, and the pros, some pretty big accomplishments for him, again, legislatively. So cons, President Trump ditched his promise to terminate DACA. Yeah. I would say that's kind of a big one. The Dreamer issue, that was certainly one in which a lot of people supported him.
This is a bummer, man. That's a bummer.
Doesn't mean he's having secret sex with Putin. Just means that was slightly disappointing for someone who, wanted to see him do something there. Yeah. Another con in that same vein, very little, or if no money at all, for a border wall in a budget deal, even though there was a $1 trillion deal that had been reached.
You promised me. So much for promises.
I've got to imagine that people who voted for Donald Trump are disappointed.
A little pissed.
Yeah, that's kind of the standard we're trying to use for this list.
Yeah.
Is what would people who voted for President Trump, the guy who won the presidency, by the way.
In case you didn't know.
Yeah. Before today, we were going to list healthcare, but
hey,
good on you.
There you go.
Good on you.
So here are the pros of President Donald Trump. The Mexico City policy was reinstated. Effectively, this was a reversal of President Obama's reversal. And what that meant is it was a policy that said American taxpayers could not go to funding any kinds of abortions or organizations that fund abortions overseas. Obama reversed it, one of his first things as president. President Trump reversed it as one of his first actions as president. Now, if we're going to talk, I see that as a pro. I think everyone should see that as a pro, because even if you consider yourself radically pro-abortion here in the States, it's a stretch to say that our tax dollars should help support organizations that perform abortions in Zambia.
Don't beat yourself up.
This is what I know a lot of people will say. Neil Gorsuch, confirmed. Yeah. Biggest pro was his confirmation hearing in watching Al Franken soil himself.
Good Lord, this guy shit himself big time.
So again, for people who voted for Donald Trump, that's a big pro, because the Supreme Court seats were up for grabs, and we thought, well, hopefully he doesn't pivot and he actually appoints some conservative Supreme Court justices. That's a really good start.
Yeah.
This is a legislative accomplishment. Yeah. It's not just about arbitrary, we're winning because you're pissing off liberals. That's a big deal. Put that in the win column.
Boom.
Another pro, Trump is pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord.
I don't know why you always have to be judging me, because I only believe in science.
So this is saving billions of dollars of the American taxpayers' money. And here's something else, removing crippling sanctions, which whether you agree on this idea of a global government approach to climate change or not, this deal, it's unilaterally agreed upon, was unfair to the United States. Yeah. The sanctions unfairly targeted the United States. So for people who voted for him, who wanted to see the United States do well, not necessarily France, I'd say that's a pro.
Yeah, pro. Absolutely.
Sure. Okay, pro. Yes. Immigration arrests are up 38% nationwide, and illegal border crossings have slowed down significantly, with some reports even saying slowing down to over 70%, though that's kind of hard to measure. Yeah. It's generally measured by arrests at the border. Here's the thing. Why is that the case? People saying, well, there's no legislative change there yet, in contrast with other items on the list. He's actually empowering police forces to enforce the law.
Well, when an adult male is chasing a female with intent to commit rape, I shoot the bastard. That's my policy.
Go figure.
That's the biggest thing.
What a bizarre concept.
God, I don't even think that took a stroke of a pen.
No.
Probably just said, yeah.
Just a phone call. Like, hey, President Trump, I got this guy here. He's here illegally.
Do my job or sit this one out.
Yeah, Barack Obama tied their hands.
Yeah.
So that's how you see. And by the way, this is confirmation of what conservatives have known for a long time. People who've certainly known, folks who work with ICE or law enforcement, that their hands were tied in dealing with illegal immigration. That's this. If you were to say single issue voters, immigration was a big one for Donald Trump. And right away, within the first few months, arrests are up 38%. That should tell you something before a bill even needs to be signed. And finally, another pro, again, this depends where you line up, hundreds of regulations have been repealed. Regulatory output is actually 0.12%, which if you compare to the previous administrations, including President George W. Bush, that's very low. which of course the libertarian in me with a fundamental mistrust of government will talk about net neutrality with Thomas Hazlitt a little later. I would say that's a good thing.
It's a fantastic thing for businesses.
Can you dig it? And that's affected in the market. Of course, when you look at speculation, speculators, you look at the projections. We didn't want to necessarily talk about the market because it's kind of volatile.
Yeah.
We don't want to talk about the jobs reports because
Too soon.
it's too soon. But I do think that we can definitively say this is a pretty accurate list of pros and cons with President Donald. Did we miss any? You comment, send us your tweets, let us know. What do you think of the performance thus far? And by the way, if you're going to be talking about Russians and peeing prostitutes and Vladimir Putin, just go on over to Seth Meyers' channel. That's what he wants. He has that on a loop like a morphine drip. Hey, if you like this video, subscribe by clicking the subscribe button. It's in a circle now. It used to be a square, which most buttons aren't squares. Unless it's on a phone. There's square buttons on phones, but most buttons are circles. You understand what I'm talking about. Or watch the recommended video, which is popping up in a box, or subscribe at louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub. Join the Mug Club so you can get the daily show. And that means that you are not beholden to the YouTube censoring overlords. But let's be honest, you like being there where you are, under their thumb.